All right, am I right in assuming everybody got into Visual Studio like you were asked to do yesterday? All right. So we're going to come in, we're going to do a File, New, Project, save it where you normally save your things. You're going to turn this in. We're going to do the first part as a class, and then I'm going to give you a handout that's got the rest of the stuff that you're supposed to do. We'll go over that too. I have no idea how long this will take. All right. I did run through it, and it does work. So long as I don't screw anything up, it should work. All right. So once we get in here, again, I'm just going to call mine MVC to do. You can call it anything you want. Just call it something with MVC in it would be nice, because that way when you turn it in, I'll be able to know which one to grade, and which one to grab from your flash drive. So I call mine MVC to do. Now, what we're going to create is a task list or a to-do list, and I actually went out and got a bunch of information from the internet on this stuff. What we're going to create at first is going to look really pretty, part of it at least, is going to look pretty ugly. You're going to fix it up. Okay? So, you can create the directory for the solution. So again, mine's on the desktop. Yours is wherever you save yours. When we get to here, we want to choose MVC. For this first example, we're not worrying a lick about authentication. So you can click the change authentication and set it to no authentication and click OK. And then you want to choose MVC here and make sure the MVC is checked here too. It should be by default. All right, I'm not worried right now for the add unit tests. This is a fairly simple example that we're running through. We may get done with it in an hour, and that's great, seriously. If we do, I'll give you the handout, tell you what you're supposed to do to fix it up, so to speak, and send you on your way. And I don't mean to go home, all right? Ethan was smiling already. He's like, oh, wow, I'll get to, no. But if you get time today to work on it, that would be great. I'm actually not making this due until a week from tomorrow. All right, so you'll have plenty of time to work on it. All right. On Friday, as far as I know, Ms. Zika is still going to be here. I may have to step out for a bit. I don't know. There's Saturday is the open house, and they wanted a bunch of the instructors to meet at 2 o'clock in the other building. I'm trying to get out of it, and I think I'm out of it right now. All right, but if I'm not, then I might have to go to it. All right, so we went to change authentication, and we chose none, and we're not going to host this in the cloud. We're going to go over all that stuff starting next week. We're going to go through a more extensive example next week. When we get done with that more extensive example, we're going to end up publishing that to the cloud in, using Microsoft Azure. Okay, so let's not worry about it right now. We're not going to worry about the unit tests either, so just leave them off. That's fine. If you want to put them on, you can. We're not doing a darn thing with them. What this should do, though, after you've done all that, is this should create a new project for you. And as we looked at in class yesterday, I believe it was, it now has a bunch of stuff in it that we have not really had in our projects before. We've got a controllers folder, we've got a models folder, we've got a views folder. All right, now, with what I'm going to show you today, anybody know what scaffolding is? You ever see that where they're like building a building, and what they do is they kind of put a thing around it, so to speak, as they're building the building? That's scaffolding. We're going to scaffold this project. What that means is it's going to end up building most of the code for us. All right, that's the good news. The bad news, and I don't know if you really call it bad news, but normally when we create models, they're going to be put in here, in the models folder, which kind of what you probably think that's where they'd go. But since we're scaffolding, it's going to literally just put them down here, and they're not going to be in any folder. All right, again, is that a big thing? No. Same with controllers. Everything that we need is going to be just put down here because we're scaffolding. And don't worry about it. That's fine. All right, I just thought this might be an easier way to introduce this to you. Now, I'm just going to go in and you can do the same thing. Just go ahead and run it. We've looked at this already. And again, not really grand, glorious, or whatever. But there's a reason that I want you to look at it. And if you're not going to run it, at least look at what's on the screen here. But you really should run it. All right. This is the home page. By the time we're done with this project today, we're going to change this home page. All right. I already sent you some stuff today. We're going to, on the Jumbotron, we're going to get rid of the heading that says ASP.NET. We're going to get rid of the text here. We're going to get rid of the button. We're going to put our own image there and our own heading there. And this stuff, which is just canned stuff, we're going to get rid of that, and we're going to put our own stuff in there too. I've already provided that information for you. All right? So, just so you see it, because I've actually got it up, and still running? Nope. I don't know if it'll run or not, so sometimes it'll let me run two projects at the same time because it'll grab different ports. Sometimes it says, I want that same port. So this is what it's going to look like. All right, we're going to have task list here. We're going to have an image. And notice I actually put some relevant or semi-relevant code here. And I'm not lying. I stole this from Wikipedia. All right. And if you click on any of these, it brings you to the Wikipedia page in a new window. All right. So that's the first thing. And then we're going to go to our About page. Now, this looks really ugly. I'm just warning you ahead of time because I went out to, it's just a bunch of text. I went out to a website and grabbed a bunch of text that was on to-do lists, etc. You're going to fix this and pretty it up. Okay? That's going to be one of the things you're going to do. The contact page, I didn't do a darn thing because I thought, yeah, you ought to do that too. So I'm going to let you do that because you've already done a contact page. All right, we did it with that loan amortization program. You could use that as a baseline or a template or whatever to get started with. But what we're going to add, if you look on the screen here, all right, is we're going to have this. It's going to have priorities. Come on. All right. So we're going to make 4 priorities: low, medium, high, and urgent. Low will be priority of 1, medium 2, all right, high 3, and urgent 4. All right. Plus, after we do this, you'll be able to go in and edit any of these records and make changes to them if you want to. All right. You'll be able to add a new one if you want to. You'll be able to delete an existing one if you want to. All right. And then we're going to link that table to actually some tasks. You may laugh at my tasks. They were stupid. It was early this morning. What can I tell you? Trim beard. All right. But I put this stuff up here, and I wanted an example of each task. Priority: high, medium, low, and urgent. All right. So I put a bunch of stuff up here in much the same way. I can click on any one of these and edit it. I can click on the delete and get rid of it. I can click up there to create new and create a new one. Does that all make sense? All right. And I did that, and I'm not going to lie to you. I think I had to write, that'd be 0 lines of code, all right, to get this to work. All right, none. And I did have to set up the database, so that's the first thing that we're going to do, is we're going to set up the database. All right. So I'm going to leave that one open, but I want to close the other one that I've opened, the one that we all have. All right. So like I said, the first thing that we're going to want to do is, so make sure your program is not running any longer, all right, is to go back here to our program. I hate it when I do that, but I did it anyway. All right, and I want us to right mouse click on App Data and choose Add and choose New Item, and this is what should come up. All right, if you right mouse clicked on your app data folder and chose Add and chose New Item, this is what should come up. Is there anybody who tried to do that and that didn't come up? All right, as you'd probably guess, we want to choose SQL Server Database. All right, and we can call it whatever we want. I'm just going to call mine To Do, because it's going to be a to-do list. And really, again, the way that you set this up as far as the capitalization really doesn't matter. All right, in the end, it doesn't. All right, but I just put the T and the D in to do in capitals. Okay, so and then after you've done that, click Add. All right, what you should see if it worked is we now have that database over here. Cool? That happened to everybody? All right. We should also, if you go and do a view Server Explorer, if your Server Explorer isn't shown, you should also have it over here. All right? You should. And if you don't see it, you may have to go and right mouse click and do a refresh, but it should be over there. Is there anybody who your database is not over there in your Server Explorer? All right. Then let's go in and start doing some work with it. So I'm going to right mouse click on the database in my Server Explorer. I'm sorry. First I'm going to go over to tables. Okay, so I'm going to open up the to-do.mdf, and then I'm going to right mouse click on tables and choose add new table. Now the good news is we're only going to put in 2 tables. All right, one table only has 2 fields in it. There really and truly is, it doesn't matter the order in which we put in these 2 tables. Just so you know that. It's not going to matter. We're going to have a table called priorities, and we're going to have a table called tasks. We might as well put in the priorities one first because for every priority could have 1 or more tasks. Make sense? So we're going to have a one-to-many relationship between priorities, all right, and tasks. Hopefully that makes sense. All right. So with this in here, like they said, there's only 2 fields, and I decided rather than just calling it ID, I've got this one is called priority ID with a capital P and a capital I. It's going to be an int. We're not going to allow nulls. And then it's a primary key by default. If you see the key there, that's what we want. And the other one is just going to say priority description, no space. And I'm going to make that an nvarchar. And by default, it goes to 50. That's pretty big. So I'm going to just make it about half that. 25 should be fine. But you have to give it a description. So this is what that should look like. All right? Any questions on that? Anybody have any problems doing that? Now, what is cool, so to speak, about this assignment that we're doing today is all your database is going to be populated without you having to actually go back in here and write anything. All right? That's what the scaffolding is going to do for us. Plus, what you're going to see, if you remember when we looked, when we went over chapter 18 at the beginning of class yesterday, we talked about that entity modeling framework, that tool where it came up and it had the 2 little boxes that had all of your different tables in it. You're going to see that today too. And you're going to see a bunch of code written for you. I'm going to say automatically, but sort of. All right. Now, you may or may not remember, but the next thing we have to do is we have to come up here and click Update. All right. So please go and click Update. And it should come up, and it should look like this when you click Update. So if you click that Update that's over here, you can either click the word Update or the arrow. It should come up and look like this. Yes?
Should we rename the table to
We're going to get to that in just a second. All right. And just click Update. All right. Now, Brady just asked a question, and it was a good question. But I want, I kind of, believe it or not, did it like this on purpose because what I want you to see is this right here, just so you know, this area down here, this is called the TSQL window. And T is short for transact. Transact SQL. That's the language that you can actually use with SQL Server to write code. So if we wanted to write our own procedures and the like, we could do that. All right. So I'm going to come in here now, and where it says table, I'm going to highlight that word table down there, and I'm going to type in priorities. All right. And I will tell you, it may not sound like a big thing, all right, but what I have experienced in the last year and a half or whatever it's been, almost a year and a half with you, and this is not to be funny and this is not to be mean, Some of you don't spell that well. But you should take the time to make sure if this is something that you're going to end up putting out there on your portfolio, you should make sure you spell stuff correctly. Again, you don't want to get the reputation for something goofy like that. All right, so I changed it to priorities, and now I'm going to go back up and I'm going to click the update button again. All right, and now notice it says DBO priorities table, and I'm going to click update. All right. Now, what should happen, and we'll see, I'm going to right mouse click on the tables folder, I'm going to click refresh, and I want to see if that's there. All right, and I've actually got two of them because the first one I created, unfortunately, I've got it there twice. If you do have that, I do, but you probably don't. But if you do, just right mouse click on it and choose delete. All right. I only want the table that says priorities and that looks like this. All right. Everybody hear that? Okay. I'm not going to close this. I'm not going to do anything with this. All right. But I am going to go over, I've got my cheat sheets here, and I'm going to right mouse click on the tables folder again, and I'm going to choose add new table. This time, I'm just immediately going to change the name of this to tasks, T-A-S-K-S. I'm not going to update yet, and I'm not going to call it rasks. All right, so I'm going to come in here. This table will have 5 fields in it. All right, the first field that we're going to put in here is task ID. It's going to be our primary key. The T will be capitalized, the I will be capitalized. It's an integer. Since it's a primary key, of course, we won't allow nulls. All right? Then, and we've seen this kind of thing before with the Halloween Superstore, we're going to have task short, DESC. So if we wanted to make a short description, and that's going to be an nvarchar of size 10. And that cannot be blank. All right. Then we're going to have task long, DESC, and that one's going to be an nvarchar of 50. And that one can be blank. Sometimes you just, it's enough to just put, get haircut. Do you really have to put like a lot more explanation than get haircut? All right, I put in beard and trim beard. All right, that kind of an idea. But sometimes you don't need it. So we're going to make that one. It's not going to be mandatory. All right, then we're going to have a task due date. And that's just going to be a date field. And that one won't be mandatory either, just because of the fact that sometimes we're going to have a task and it might be, there's a big difference between pick up your daughter from soccer practice. All right, if I don't give that a date and it's today and I don't go, she'll probably be miffed. All right, but if my wedding anniversary is 8 months away and I put down buy anniversary gift, that probably won't have a time limit on it. See what I'm saying? So we're going to leave that one. That can also be blank. But we want to add one more field here, and this is going to be called task priority. This will be an integer. This cannot be blank. This field right here, this field is going to link to our priority ID in the other table. Does that make sense? All right.
Did you say you wanted the long description being nvarchar?
Yeah, and I made it an nchar, didn't I? I don't know what I did there, but I screwed it up. Thank you. That's better. All right. Now, a couple things in here. This has changed over time, so there's different ways that you can go in here and set up. All right, you can come in and you can actually set up working with foreign keys, which is what we want to do right now. All right, but I still find, and you may or may not agree with this, all right, but I still find that the easiest way to do this is to use what's over here. So what we want to do is we want to let the system know that the reason we put task priority in this table is so that we can link it to the priorities table. All right, so what task priority is it's a foreign key. Hopefully, I know it's been a while since we've talked about some of that stuff, but hopefully it makes sense to you. So I'm going to right mouse click here and choose add foreign key. All right. And I can type it in here, but I found out that when you do that, when you switch to the SQL pane, and you right mouse click and you click switch to SQL pane, you can write it down here. And then a bunch of the stuff is already written for you. All right. Now, when I say it's already written for you, it's not complete. So if we look at this right now, this is right now our table. Task ID, an integer, not null, primary key. Task short description, n varchar 10, not null. Task long description, n varchar 50, null, meaning it can be blank. Task due date, date null. Task priority, int, not null. All right. What I like about using this transact or TSQL window is it prompts you for what it needs. So it says, okay, I'm going to make a foreign key for the task table. And what's the other table? Well, the other table is priorities. All right, so that's the first thing. I will tell you, just so you know this, not with SQL Server, but if you ever happen to be working, for example, with MySQL, and you create this and you don't give your foreign key a name, one is given for you or to you automatically, but it's just a number. And it's usually a 6 to 8 digit number. You're never going to remember that. So what this is saying is, okay, it's a foreign key, and it's in the task table, and it's going to link to the priorities table. That's a pretty good name. If I had more than one foreign key linking from the task to the priorities, then it wouldn't be that great a name. But for what we're doing, it's just fine. Now, you don't have to do this, but I'm just going to hit enter, and I'm going to put this on 3 lines. And it says, well, what column are you working with here? Well, we are working with this task priority column. All right, and don't worry when you get these red lines. They will go away, or at least they should go away. All right, and then it says references. So what table are we referencing? And that table that we are referencing is the priorities table. All right. Now this morning when I went through this, when I got here this morning and ran through this for like the second or third time. All right. But I didn't have the capitalization the same. And for some reason, the first time when I did it without the capitalization being the same, in other words, what we're going to type in here right now is priority ID, okay? But when I typed it in, I had priority ID, and the I was capitalized, and so was the D. And it didn't work when I tried doing my update. It gave me error messages, which I didn't think it would do, but it did do. All right, so I'm going to come in here and type in priority ID with that kind of capitalization. All right, does what we just did right there, does that make sense to people? Setting that up as a foreign key. Well, as you probably guess, a good thing to do next would be to update. So I'm going to click the update. And again, when you get a thing like this that isn't filled with error messages like mine was this morning, all right, that's a good thing. So you click the Update Databases button. All right. So now we have our 2 tables and they're all set up. Does that make sense to people? Is there anything, I'm asking this, is there anything we have done so far that people don't understand? Does everybody got this done? You've created both tables. It's going to be paramount for you to be able to finish this project that you have both the tables created. All right. So now I'm going to close both of those. All right. And just to prove it, and just so you see this, I'm going to refresh. Now I've got both my tables. You don't have to do this, but if you look on the screen here, and if I click priorities and I click show table data, I think you'll all agree there's nothing in there, right? All right, I'm going to do it with both of them. And I'm going to right mouse click on tasks and do show table data just to show you. There's no data in there. All right? All right. Now I'm going to do something, and you don't have to do this, but since I've made some changes, all right, it's a good time as far as I'm concerned to do a save all And I'm just going to run the program one more time. You don't have to do that. Nothing magical happens when you run the program again. But I'm running it again to make sure what? I didn't break anything. All right? I watched a different Git video yesterday, and the first thing the guy did before he started working with Git was he took the folder he had and made a copy of everything. And I thought, well, isn't that what you're doing with Git? And he said, just in case. And I thought, oh, brother. So I got application name here. There's home. There's about. There's contact. Everything works. That's good. All right. So I can close this. And I can close it here. All right. Now, right now, we're almost ready to scaffold, but not quite. All right. We've got to provide a little bit more information to the system. Okay. And basically, the information that we have to provide is we have to let the system know that what we're about to do is we basically want to set up some entity framework stuff. All right. So if you would please right mouse click on the name of your project, not your solution, but the name of your project. Mine is MVC to do. And choose add new item. And what should show when you do this is the same screen I have. If your screen is different, then just tick the data tab over here. All right. Now, we've seen this before, but we've always chosen SQL Server Database. We already have that. So what we have to choose is ADO.NET Entity Data Model. This is where, if you're real anal about this stuff, you can give it a better name. But this is the only one we're going to create, so I'm going to keep it Model 1. If you wanted to call it something different, that'd be totally fine. All right, no problem doing that. All right, so I'm going to click Add. All right, and it comes to here. We're going to be looking at more of these as we go on. But for right now, we want the EF Designer from database because we already have a database. All right, so since that's already highlighted, we're going to click Next. We're walking through the wizard. This is nice. Now, does yours look like mine? As far as did it fill out everything in your connection string, etc.? If it didn't, raise your hand. That's good because otherwise it's a pain in the butt to try to find all that information. But I had you do it this way so that stuff would all be set up for you. All right? And it says, do we want to save this connection string, the one that's here in our web config file? Sure we can. And it says save it as to-do, that's mine is at least to-do entities. If you named yours something different, yours might be something different, and that's okay. So let's click Next again. And now it asks, which version of the entity framework do you want to use? I don't know if you remember this or care, but to me, this is frickin' cool because this is what we did yesterday, but I showed it to you in the book. Now we're doing it. All right? So hopefully, if you had problems or you weren't listening or whatever yesterday, it's making more sense now. You should always try to choose the top one because that's going to be the newest one. All right? And it's the one that's chosen by default anyway. If you happen to choose Entity Framework 5.0, you might say, well, why would I ever want to do that? What if you're working on a project for a company that has older versions of software? It's not inconceivable that that could happen. But the stuff might work differently because they're always doing upgrades and updates with new versions. All right, so we're going to click Next. And now it says, okay, I'm going to retrieve some stuff for you. Well, I'm going to click this arrow that's over here just so I can see everything that's in here. And I'm going to click right there where it says Tables. And just to double check, I want to make sure that all that stuff is checked. All right. And if you have to, you can check it by hand. But what we're saying is our entity data model is going to consist of these two tables. And that's all we have, so that's a good thing. We don't have any views. We don't have any stored procedures or functions. If we did, we would check those. All right, but since we don't have those, it's a moot issue. So we're done. The model namespace is to do model, and we click finish. It's going to sit there and whiz around for a while, and then you're going to see something that we looked at yesterday, but we didn't really do anything with. Okay? It's still thinking. There it is. This is those entity model diagrams. All right? There's things you can do with this. For now, at least, we're not going to be concerned with it. All right? It is showing a few things to us, though. It says that we have two tables, priority and task, and our priorities table has a priority ID and a description. All right? And it also says that our task table has a task ID, it has a short description, a long description, a due date, and a priority. But you can also see that with navigation properties, it's saying that there is a link between those two tables, which is what we wanted, which is what we did earlier. All right? We don't have to do anything else. We don't have to do anything else with this model. If you do, like, I'm not going to do it, but even if I just grab it and move it or something like that, if you do that, when you close it, you're going to be asked to save it. All right? Because you've changed it, whether you think you have or not. All right? I don't want to change it at all, so I'm just going to go right there and just click close. Now, if you notice, a bunch of stuff happened over here, and you notice there's a bunch of stuff that's open here. All this stuff in references, we don't really need to have that open, so I'm just going to click there. It's cleaning up my screen a little bit, that's all. All right. Is everybody caught up? Anything that I've gone over so far that hasn't made sense? All right, and I'm taking for granted that Tiffany's going to watch the tape. All right, and that she'll be able to go through it herself. All right, so now normally what we do is if we wanted to create a new controller, which is what we want to do, we're not doing this, but normally we would right mouse click on here, choose add, and we choose controller. That would give us a more or less an empty controller. But we're going to use scaffolding, which is going to build a lot of code for us. All right? And the order in which we do this does matter. So I'm going to right mouse click again on the name of my project, and I'm going to choose add, and up near the top you see new scaffold item. Everybody see where, if you can't see it, look on the screen here. All right? And it's a little different because it's wizard driven, but you have to give it information. All right? So with new scaffold item, I'm going to click there, and it brings this up. And it says, what kind of these are you working with? All right? The web API stuff is totally disjoint. It's not even, it's just remotely connected to the MVC stuff. So we'd never choose that. If we wanted an empty controller, literally meaning we wanted nothing in it, we'd choose empty. We don't want that. If we weren't creating a controller, we were creating a view, we'd choose MVC5 view. All right, the one we want is this one right here, the second one. MVC controller with views using entity framework. Now that should make sense to you because we've already been working with the entity framework. All right, so with that chosen, click add. And this is going to come up. And I'm going to wait a second. I want to make sure this is where everybody is. Now, we want to build the priorities stuff before the task stuff. And the reason we want to build the priorities first is those priorities, that 1, 2, 3, 4, we want that to automatically appear in our tasks. And the only way that it'll automatically appear is if we build the priorities first. Does that make sense? All right. So right here under model class, we're going to click this down arrow, and we're going to choose priority. We're going to do this again in just a minute. We're going to choose tasks. But for right now, we're going to choose priority. And then we go to data context class. Anybody want to guess which one of those we're going to check? Okay, it's not that hard. So we're going to choose this. Now, if you look, notice we're working with our priorities table. So it's going to make a controller for us named Priorities Controller. We talked about this yesterday. When you're working in MVC, your controller, remember the controller is the traffic cop between the view and the model. But controllers always end with the word controller with a capital C. All right? So just remember that the name of our controller is Priorities Controller. All right? We haven't had to do anything but choose a bunch of options thus far. So we're going to click Add. There was an error running. Try rebuilding the project. Okay, if you do get that, okay, which happens occasionally, all you have to do is just click the build button and tell it to build the solution. All right? So if you get that, you may or may not get that. I didn't get it this morning when I built it. I got it now. So I don't know why I did. Okay? So I'm going to do the same thing I just did. I'm going to right mouse click on here. I'm going to choose Add. I'm going to choose New Scaffold Item. MVC Controller with Views using Entity Framework. Add. I'm going to come in here and choose Priority. I'm going to come in here and choose the To-Do. All right. Leave all the other default things and click Add. Now notice it's working. All right. Just build. You don't have to run it. All right. But sometimes it falls behind when it's doing the updating. Not always.
So you just right click on the project and put build. Is that what you're saying?
No, I just literally clicked Build up here and chose Build Solution. Now this is what got built for us, is all this code. The good news is, if you look through it, in many ways, what you see in here, this is going to dovetail, in many ways, this is going to dovetail with what we looked at in the book yesterday when we were in Chapter 18. Not 100%, but in many ways it's going to look very much the same. The good news, or bad news, depending on your point of view, we don't have to do anything with this code. So I'm just going to close it. All right? You can leave it open if you want to, but there really isn't a reason to do that. Again, you can do that if you want to, but there really isn't a reason to do that. All right. Now, if you look over here, if you start looking over here, someplace here, and I think there it is, underneath your shared folder, all right, you've got a folder when you look down here, it's about halfway down. It says shared, and if you open that folder up, you should have a file called _layout.cshtml. That is our layout file, all right? And go ahead and double click on it to open it up. And it opens it up right here. Now, a bunch of stuff, and it does that sometimes, that I had a bunch of squiggly lines, and then it quick went away. So if that happens to you, don't let it bother you, okay? Again, the worst case, you might have to go back in again, and you might have to rebuild the project, okay, if that kind of thing happens. Now, I don't particularly like, you know how over on the side in our menu, remember how it says application name? Everybody hear me? That, you know, on the top of our project by our menu bar, it just says application name. Well, let's do this. That may be a little wide, but that's still okay. All right, I've got to-do list by, and then you can put your name there. You don't have to do that. You can just make it to-do list. It really and truly doesn't matter. All right. But what does matter is if you go down and look at this. These, one sec. These are the three things. Let me put we have to put in one line of code, and then I'll come talk to you. All right, these lines right here, those lines are what you see up in your menu at the top of your screen. Did you hear me? That's what you've got in there right now. And you'll notice with all three of them, it says home over here. Well, right now, before we created the controller, if you would have gone, in fact, you can do this right now. If you just take a look, you don't have to do it, but if you look on the screen here, if I go into my controllers folder, what's in there? Home controller. That's all that's in there. So what that says is that home controller is going to be what gets called when I click the home button or the about button or the contact button. All right, that's what it is. Okay? And what it's saying here is this is the name of the controller. No, I'm sorry, say it again. This right here is what's going to appear in your menu. Right there. That first thing, that is what appears in your menu. All right? This is the file that's going to be called, and that's the associated controller. All right? So if you say, should I care? Do I have to care? Well, what we're going to put in is this. I'm going to highlight that line. I'm going to copy it to the clipboard, just because I'm too lazy, and I'm going to paste it in. So I've got another one in there. And I'm going to change this to priorities, index, priorities. So one more time, if you look up on the screen here, did you answer his question? Oh, good. All right. What this is saying is, on my menu now, not only am I going to have a home and an about and a contact, I'm also going to have a priorities. All right? And when I click priorities, the file that I'm going to want to have run is index.html. All right? And the controller that I'm using for that is priorities. Remember how before when I had you look at that, it said priorities controller? Remember that? That's this. And this. All right? This can be whatever we want. I mean, I could put here Amin, Evan, Ethan, Valerie. You could do that. It wouldn't make much sense, but you could do that. These have to be correct because those are the controllers. All right? So we've got that in. Let's go in and save, and let's run it again. And when you run it, notice it says now to-do list by Jeff Scott. All right. Home, about, contact. You should all have a priorities link right here. I want to make sure I didn't break anything, so my home is fine. My about is fine. My contact is fine. But now I'm going to priorities. Come on. And there it is. That's what yours should look like when you click your priorities. All right. And now I can click Create, New, and priority ID of 1 will be low. And I'm going to create. Hit Create New again. Priority of 2 is going to be medium. And click Create. I'm going to purposely make a mistake. Everybody hear me? I'm purposely going to make a mistake in here. So I'm going to go over to Create New, Priority 3, which is going to be high, but I'm just going to type HI, like hello. All right? And Create New again, Priority ID of 4, and that's going to be urgent. And click Create. All right? So everything's done. No, I spelled high wrong, so I click Edit, go back in, and change it to high. And click Save. All right? Does that make sense to everyone what we just did? Did anybody have a problem doing that? Now, you don't have to do this, but if you would, please, I'm going to stop my run. You can leave yours running if you want to, but I'm going to stop my run for right now. Okay, this is the other one. But what I want to show you is when I stop my run, all right, again, I don't have to, but I'm clicking that to save everything. I'm going to refresh my database. I'm going to come down here, and in my tables and in priorities, I'm going to now click Show Table Data. And look what's there. So we have filled our database, all right, and we have not had to actually go into SQL Server. All right? I think that's pretty cool. Have I lost anybody right now? Is he having problems?
Yeah, there's a white
Lincoln box?
Yeah.
Try to hit your insert key. Your INS, you hit the one that says insert. You should hit insert. someplace. There's delete. There, you tried that. Did it go away?
What's this?
I don't know. It occasionally, mine did that this morning. It'll come up, it's finding some kind of internal file dependency. And when I'm trying to Google it, basically most of the stuff I saw was just ignore it. All right, which I can do that. All right. Anybody else? Anybody have any problems doing that? Because guess what we're going to do next? Anybody want to take a wild guess over what we're going to do next? We're going to replicate this. We're going to go back and do the same exact thing, but this time when we go through and we add a new scaffold item, now we're going to choose tasks. Does that make sense? So we're going to do the same thing that we just did. I'm going to close this because I don't need that open. So I'm going back to my program here. I'm again going to right mouse click on the name of my project, choose add, choose new scaffold item, right there, the same exact thing we just did. All right. So right mouse click, add new scaffold item. We want MVC controller with views using entity framework. Same thing we just did. All right. We want to come in here. And our model class this time, we don't want priority. We already did that. We want task. Notice it already filled in the data context class for us. And it already filled in, this is going to be tasks controller. All right. So I'm going to click add. It's going to go and boom in just a minute. So if you look down here, if you look on your screen, because I didn't show you this before, if you look, you'll notice if I go down towards the bottom here, what do I have? There's taskcontroller.cs. There's prioritiescontroller.cs. Normally, those will be in my controllers folder, but since we're using scaffolding, it's not. All right? Because a lot of it's been pre-written for us. So I don't need this code right now to be open, so I'm going to close that. But if you look on the screen here, I've got to go back to my _layout.cs.html file, and I've got to put in a link for that. So this will say tasks, index, and tasks. That added another link for us. All right. So I'm going to do a save all, and I'm going to run it again. And didn't break anything. Home, about, look good. Contact looks good. My priority stuff is still there. Now I'm going to tasks, and I'm going to click create new. And boom, there's that for me. So my first task ID will be task 1, the short description. Now I think we made this very small, so I'm just going to say, I don't know, clean house. Something like that. Long description. All right, I'll say wash clothes, vacuum. I think that's how you spell vacuum. I don't know. I'll give it a task due date. I'll give it today. And I'll say that's a medium priority. All right? And I'm going to click create. Now, it says valid accept, it's save changes. It gave me an error, and I want to tell you why it gave me an error. All right? And the reason that it gave me an error, and I'll fix it, it's very easy to fix. All right? I believe we made the task field only 10 characters long. Did you hear me? That short description. So we probably should have made it bigger than we did. All right, but mine is 10 characters long, so I'll leave it like that. I think that's why it broke, so I'm going to try it again. And I'm just going to put a task ID of 1. I'm just going to say clean. Not clean house, just clean. All right, this will say clean house and garage. That should be big enough for that. This will now be 10/31/2017, and we'll give it a medium priority and click create. And you see that it's in there. All right? So I'm going to put in one of each kind of task. So I've got a low, a medium, a high, etc. Create new. This will be number 2. The short description will be MVC demo. Make this frickin' demo work. The due date will be today, and I'm going to give that urgent. All right? So I now have those two things in there. I'm going to make two more. So I'm going to create new again. This number 3 right here will be dinner. Prepare dinner for family. And let's say that doesn't have a due date. I'm going to have them all over for dinner, but I don't know when. So I'll leave the date off. And I'll make that priority. I'll keep it at low. So I now have 3 tasks in my list. 1 is medium, 1 is urgent, 1 is low. 2 have dates with them. 1 does not. They all have long descriptions. They must have a short description. So I'm going to make 1 more. This one will be number 4. All right. And this will be shower. All right. Kind of a dumb thing, but that's fine. I'm not going to put a long description in there. The due date, I'll put that in as today. If you do wonder, I don't know why you would, but yes, I did shower this morning. So, and I'm going to make this a high priority and click create. So now what you can see when you look in here is every field that was in here that was mandatory is filled in. This field and this field. The fields that were optional were either filled in or not filled in or not filled in. All right? And I'm going to close or stop my run here. All right? And I'm going to go and I'm going to stop this run. Again, you don't have to do this, but I'm going to right mouse click on here and refresh. And then I'm going to right mouse click on tasks and go to show table data. And lo and behold, there's the stuff we just added. All right? And you'll notice with the priority, remember, since we had the drop down, it showed us what the actual priority is. We didn't have to remember that 3 was high. All right? So what we've done is we have created our first model view controller project. We did it the, quote, easy way, unquote. Meaning since we used scaffolding, we didn't have to write any code. We still had to, we did the database first type of model. You can code first and then worry about the database, or you can do the database first and then code. We did the database first. We set up our database for us. All right, we're going to do a project similar to this one, but it's going to be in much more depth and breadth of coverage next week. And when we do this project next week as a class, we are going to incorporate Git into it. But we're going to, I was going back over it yesterday. I'm like, why did I even show them the darn command line? All right, we should have just been using the GUI right away. But the reason that you use the command line is so that you've got an idea of what's happening. You're not just clicking a button. You have to actually put in a command. So ideally, you have some kind of an idea what the command means. All right? All right. So again, I can close this. I don't need it. All right. I'm going to close this. I don't need my layout as that file anymore. I don't even need this file open. So right now I've got virtually nothing open here. All right. But I want to change a few things. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll start adding to this. It's 1:35. Let's please come back at about 1:50. All right?
What did you change to make it not break?
To make what?
To not make it break, or to keep it from breaking? Whenever you ran it? Did you change
You mean when I got that error message, or what?
You made
All I did was I rebuilt it. I just clicked the build button, and I built it.
like 2 seconds ago. Like whenever, no.
I don't know.
Okay, so everything works. Like, I can build, I can make all the tasks, it just breaks.
Okay, the reason it
Post
breaks
so what do I
is
have to do?
your short description can only be 10 characters long. It's got to be a short description.
Okay.
So either we have to go back in and change that value, so we have to go back into our table definition, into the schema, and change that size,
Okay.
or you have to make it very short.
Okay, got it. So I was just putting something in there.
You put in something that was more than 10 characters.
Yeah,
Got it.
I might change
I did
it.
something like clean house, CLEAN space HOUSE. Guess what? I was one over. That's why it blew up.
Okay, that's what I was
Yeah,
thinking.
I think I'm
Sorry.
gonna change that to
There's
25.
nothing.
Yeah, you could change. You could do whatever you want to do to it. That's fine if you want to make changes to this. This was just designed to get you started.
So my